Hello, everyone. Welcome to a live broadcast of KabU Q&A with Senior Instructor Tony Kosinec. It's wonderful to have you with us here today. This is a great opportunity for you to be able to ask Tony your questions, whatever you're thinking or feeling about Kabbalah, or if you know nothing at all yet about Kabbalah. We ask you to post your questions in the chat on YouTube and whatever platform you're viewing from, possibly Facebook, and our professional tech team will send those to us here. So anything that you want to know, whatever's on your heart, please feel free to ask. And Tony, always wonderful to see you. Great to be together.
It is always great to be together. And the more together we are, and the more of us there are that are together, the more great it is. And that's not absurd. That is actually so. That's where all our pleasure comes from. You know, Mary, this week I do something I don't usually do. There are these short clips, shorts and other things that go up on YouTube from these broadcasts. And I looked at a couple of them, and I saw the nature of the comments. You know, they're either like, oh, this is very nice, thank you, or there are I wouldn't call them angry, but there are dismissive comments, and those dismissive comments have this thing in common. It's not the fault of the person who feels the necessity to dismiss what's being said. It's in the nature of what we're looking for when we're trying to understand and see the value of, or test the value of, Kabbalah. And this is what I noticed. It's the way in which we think we come to experience greater perception, or what we think spirituality is. So I wanted to say something about the framework out of which that confusion or that position comes from, because I felt what's needed when a person sees that way. So let me try to address it. It's hard in a way because of its subtlety. We have an assumption that in order to get a sense of the greater reality of the Creator, of the larger system, how it works, spirituality, that we can start from the material, even the most subtle aspects of material science, or in some cases psychology, and extend our understanding based on what we see in matter and what we feel in relation to that matter. And that you could eventually build a bridge, say in science, to get to the more and more subtle, minute, or vast, or most difficult to understand aspects of matter, and eventually we would reach a realm that we could, in our reasoning, we could say this is the border of spirituality. This is the causal level of things. And that assumption is the matter, I'm using that word on purpose, out of which the concealment of what spirituality is, it's made out of that. That's why we don't see it. It doesn't mean that the person who feels this way and is trying to reach it that way, or is beginning their path that way, can't reach it or is doing something wrong, but there is a misunderstanding of how the process works. everything that we look at in matter, in our reasoning, it all has to do with a particular quality that has nothing to do with spirituality. And all of these things that seem very, very mysterious in the writings of the Kabbalists that you'll see in the Bible, or you'll see in the Zohar, or you'll see in things that are not really Kabbalah, but they're based on those materials. All those things seem mystical. They're not. It's just that the words and the writing, the explanations, are based on a completely different principle of grasping something. It's an opposite principle to the one that manages the reason in our thinking. It's not like material science. It's not even like the subtlest of material science. It's a completely opposite way of thinking, but it's real. It is very real. And all of those words and definitions and the logic behind certain stories or tales or even diagrams that describe so-called upper realms, they're very simple. They're very logical to the heart once we begin to learn and hear from that language. A person has to receive some instruction about that language, that way of perceiving, and wanting to go and feel that, as opposed to the material dressing that hides everything that we see. Kabbalah is not a science like other sciences. It deals with everything above the physical. And the question is, what is above the physical? How is it tied to us? Where in us do we find our place in that? Are we exiled from it? No, but it's hidden from us because we're using the wrong aspect of ourselves. The whole point of Kabbalah is to teach a person a method by which to understand that part of them which is reason, and instruct them on a part of themselves that we completely underestimate and devalue. We don't think it's really anything. And we don't understand that the basis of reality is in this opposite quality. It is a quality that is very near to us, but it's not natural for us to do that. We need some instruction about it. This instruction is coming from nature, but it's conveyed through people. And without receiving instruction from people who have also received it from others who've received it from nature, who received it from others who received it from, and so on, you can't pierce that way of perceiving. It is a science that deals with everything above the physical, and it's easy to enter, but it's opposite. That's why Kabbalah is a methodology, why many of the things that you might hear in these answers don't make sense to your reason, but they are based on the meta-science, which is the science of the causal level of our experience. I don't think I can explain it much better than that at the moment, but it's about inclusion and something close to what we might think of as love, but it's quite precise. And if that gives you a need to understand or confuses you further, at least hopefully you'll be confused about the right thing. So Mary, let's go to the questions.
Okay, great, Tony. This first question fits in beautifully with what you were just saying about instruction to go above the physical. Sharon Alani wants to know, I have been studying for 2 months and it feels like this is still an introduction. Am I wrong? When does the actual study begin?
Well, the actual study begins when your heart is moved to search out the meaning and purpose of your life. The thing that in nature that is drawing you and without which you won't be satisfied is the beginning of the real study. In terms of what we present, how we share this and the guidance that we have learned to give, at the beginning, of your study, you are learning something about that opposite language. You're learning terminology which carries with it that opposite quality. So you're being instructed in how to re-aim your heart, the way that you feel about things, the way you really define them for yourselves when at that place where you confirm reality. So there's lots of things that need to change in the way we habitually and naturally respond to the world around us. So there's a bunch of foundations that need to be fundamental concepts and terms that help reshape the way that we perceive things. And that goes on for quite a while. You need to accumulate those so you begin to attempt to speak, think, and feel in the terms of the causal level of your experience rather than the material or the outcome level. And the real work, I would call it the practical aspect of Kabbalah, usually begins for a person 6 months to a year down the line, where all of these things start to tie together in a kind of systemic way within a person. And not that there aren't awakenings of all sorts while you're beginning to learn. Right away, the world appears differently, but the ability to work with it within the method itself starts to come together within that period of time when you've been with it long enough that you sort of habituate certain ways of listening, directing, thinking, feeling, and you accumulate enough experience looking at the world and understanding, well, why it is framed in the way that it is from this opposite quality that we call spirituality. Begin to understand what that might be. So it takes a while. And then then further down the line, we begin to see the benefit of this work in relation to other people, in the relation to the fulfillment of other people, which is actually our fulfillment. And it feels that way. It feels that the fulfillment of others is tied with the purpose of our existence in a very beautiful way. But it becomes clearer and clearer and clearer. And that's when the practical work really begins for a person.
Hey, thank you, Tony. Aham Svarupa, thank you for your question, viewing on Facebook. What objective proof do you have that B'nai Baruch's understanding of Kabbalah is real Kabbalah and that of other schools is not?
Well, first of all, I'm not saying that other schools don't have it. You can have. There's two aspects to this. One is the materials themselves, which are all, if they've come from Kabbalah, they're all correct. But the meaning, the grasp, and the application of those things are most commonly completely misunderstood. Western religions all come from Kabbalah, and yet the application of the methodology, the meaning of the words, and the logic behind those words are a complete mystery to the religious level. So all the material is there, and yet you can't crack it that way. It's, as far as it goes, it's really good. But I'm not making any kind of a blanket statement about whether some other school of Kabbalah has a correct comprehension and a correct use of it. You're the one who's going to have to prove that. If you don't really have a basis for judging. Unless you learn in some kind of full manner with one, and if you don't like it, work in a completely devoted way with another, and see whether or not it is so. You're the one who decides the truth. I can give you a shortcut by saying that for me, this, after having done that process myself over many, many years, and with different teachers, this is what I found. But that doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen for you. Unless you're involved in tasting and testing for yourself I don't mean just you, anybody, we won't achieve anything anywhere. It has to be that involved. It's like it's a science, and you have to do the experiment, and the thing that's being experimented on is you and your heart. So please go ahead, find the right place.
Okay, this next question comes from Ultimate Value Exchanger. What is space? I strongly feel that actually this space is God.
Space is the distance of the emotional distance of the heart from the present circumstances and conditions that we find ourselves in, the lack of acceptance of it. In other words, waiting, holding back, that the light, we don't have a sense that the light is within us at that point. We feel that it's external to us. There is no space per se. It's only a sense of whether we feel the light is within or surrounding us. And it's, we just are not identifying with what we are being presented with. We don't agree with it. But there's also there's a term in Kabbalah called makom, which is place. And that's not the same as space. That's the quality of the creator, of the upper force. And within us, there is the opportunity to agree with this, because in the complete agreement with that everything is the creator, is presented and led by the creator, everything outside of us and also everything inside of us is in the hands of the loving and bestowing and sustaining force that does nothing but look after us. A person can look at this and feel it as though they were serving a life sentence, or which would produce space, the difference between me and what's presented there. Or you could find yourself in an embrace, in a complete agreement with it, in what you could think of as the Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, in the complete acceptance of all of that, and in the desire to serve and share that. That's it.
Hey, thank you, Tony. We have friends with us who have been here before, so I'd like to read a list of where they're viewing from, and anyone who else hasn't done so, you're welcome to do that, and I'll read those locations in a short while. So we have friends viewing from Rotterdam, Sydney, Australia, Barcelona, Lima, Peru, Romania, Pittsburgh, Salt Lake City, New Mexico, Michigan, Cortez, Colorado, Portugal, South Africa, Argentina, Minnesota, the Netherlands, France, Kenya, Bulgaria, Mexico, Chile, Long Island, New York, and Ethiopia. Wow. I think we've covered almost every continent. So thank you, friends. Please send in more locations if you wish to do so. The next question is from a YouTube viewer taught by Emeralds. What would you say is most important for beginners to implement in their study habits?
Some type of consistency, that you have a framework in which you make sure that you're reading or you are listening to something or watching something related to the study, that it's not done just whenever and according to when you feel inspired, but that you have a framework in which you do it even and especially when you're not inspired, because that is the very quality that we're learning to overcome. The part of our kind of self-interest and egoism that is only motivated when we feel that we're going to get some kind of self-fulfillment out of it. We're trying to learn to operate like that upper force, which never thinks of itself at all, exists only for the complete fulfillment of everything below that, to include it all and to bring it completely to fulfillment without a thought for self. So if you include this in your, even at the very beginning, that regardless of how I feel at a certain, say, time of day, or I will make certain during the day at some point, I will be in contact with this language and feeling of that opposite spiritual quality, that would be very useful. It's a good and powerful habit to develop, and that little thing will open up into an entirely different world eventually.
Next question coming from Instagram by BZF. What is the role of consciousness in spiritual growth?
Well, you know, this requires a definition. There is this thing, there is life, and there is a feeling that we have about life, and there is a definition of what we call consciousness as either me, you know, what I consider me is and self-awareness on the material level is considered consciousness. But there are other types of higher awareness that are not about the awareness of my own existence. And it's not owned, my own existence is a kind of a fallacy of perception. It's a false perception, because this sensation of life, I'm not the owner of that. We're like branches in out of which the awareness comes from the root, and all this thing that moves through us and makes us, you know, be a certain type of flower and all that. We're the recipient of that. Our life and our awareness is not owned by us, and it is not our consciousness until we come to agree with the quality that is the actual definition of consciousness. And I'm going to dump consciousness because it's an inadequate term. But Kabbalah uses the term bestowal, which is a force that is both feeling, intelligence, meaning, and purpose all at once, and is what fuels all of life from a single source. And that's what we feel, more or less, when we think of consciousness. Does it have anything to do with it? There isn't anything but that. And coming to a full sensation of that is what spiritual attainment is about.
Hey, Zorika, thank you for your question. Zorika Kostanovska. The more I study, the more I feel lost, desperate, and lonely, which I haven't even before. What am I doing wrong?
Nothing. You're doing everything absolutely correctly. Your development is, everybody's development is about the need that we have. That's the force that nature uses to develop us, and we become according to the need that we have, the quality of that need, for what and for whom. That shapes our experience of reality. That determines basically the circumstances that we find ourselves in. It determines the reality that we see, feel. Now, the whole point of moving ourselves from being motivated only by personal fulfillment allows for the positive experience of what you're calling emptiness. And that's part of the natural process by which nature both pushes and pulls us to have a desire for what it wants to give us, not for the things that we're distracted by, that only exist in an imaginary way in our our desire for self-satisfaction. We tend to think that's where being filled will come from. That's where satisfaction and being at ease and all of that comes from. No, only pain comes from that. The situation you're in is you're in a transitional point. You are between looking for that satisfaction. You said, okay, I understand. I'm going to look for it in the fulfillment of the basis of life itself, which is more than me. So you're neither in that place yet of perceiving where that is in you and how you relate to that, which it's necessary to relate it through and with other people. You're not there yet, and you're no longer in the material. You're in a transition point of the creation of a new emptiness or a new vessel that will allow for you to desire and experience the reality that nature wants to bring you to. And you will go through this process over and over again to different degrees, and you'll eventually come to recognize that that is how nature works with us all the time, about everything. But our problem is that we keep looking for the satisfaction from the self-interest and egoistic fulfillment level of life, which is where all of the pain that we experience actually comes from. So you learn, the whole thing about Kabbalah is that you learn to work with this enormous force of nature, which creates desire in us and which we can either throw away or waste, this cyclical emptiness, and run away because we don't feel personally fulfilled momentarily, or we can understand how to use this, because this is the thing that eventually changes our perception of reality. And nature itself, the system feels us responding this way, it fills us with the next thing that we need, with a different kind of perception, with a new direction for our desire, and so on. You're doing everything right.
Tony, Lewis is asking, what does corporeal restriction have to do with spirituality?
It doesn't have anything to do with it. Don't worry about that. That's not what it's about. You can't change anything by restricting desires or by doing things with your hands and feet. First, you have to come to understanding what it is that you want to change inside of yourself intentionally, where you want to get to. Then you understand why you would or wouldn't do something. And the method of Kabbalah does not involve telling other people, students or anybody, what they can or can't do physically. Once there's a sensation of what would be anti-egoistic in this situation, what would the opposite of this imply, then one would understand they would make choices according to that. They simply would or wouldn't do something on the outcome level, an action. You can't reach any of this access to spirituality and attainment through coercion. You can't reach it through an ethical framework. You have to find the source of that trickles down into action that a person would call ethical. When you reach that, everything you do will be right and good, and whether you can recognize it or not. And if we try to do it from the point of view of ethical restrictions on things we don't understand, nothing we do is really going to work. So I choose the former.
Hey, coming from YouTube, Kermie's Music is asking, why does God love suffering so much?
No, it's you who love suffering. Because everything that we do and the way in which we understand is designed to have us cling onto things that are destined for emptiness, things that cannot last, because the will to receive is only a starting point and part of a mechanism. It is intended to die. in a sense. That way of seeing. If you cling to a state that is passing, it is intended to pass and is only intended to bring you to another state, like a caterpillar, can it cling onto its caterpillar state when it be starting to morph? Can it stay within the cocoon? This is the pain. This is the suffering. It's self-induced suffering, and it's across a broad level. It's not just, it is personal, but it's not just personal. It's also across all human interaction, human society. We don't understand well enough how nature works with us. We don't understand the processes that we're in. The Creator wants to take us completely out of that into complete freedom and fulfillment. Our problem is that the definition that we have of freedom and fulfillment are not accurate. Once we begin to learn what that is and learn the method of being able to feel that and work that way in our lives, then we see that freedom, connection, complete fulfillment are very, very close to us. It's a change in what we value and in who we do things for that gives us access to what you could call the spiritual. The ego and suffering and all that is a tool of the Creator to bring us to complete freedom and fulfillment. Just don't cling on to it. Learn how to do and go where nature is trying to take us.
Tony, Anna Varghese has two questions that seem to be related, so I'll read both of them. What is the difference between spiritual attainment between Abraham and Joshua? The other question, what does it mean, flaming sword in Genesis?
Well, Abraham and Yehoshua are states, right? So you're correct to ask, what are those states? And you're asking for a difference. They're not. Yehoshua is a. It means he will save. And it's a state in which we help in a very self-effacing, in a very humble kind of annulled way. We facilitate the fulfillment of others, and Avraham is like father of a nation. This is a kind of integration, a place of integration for all of humanity. It is a great tent in which all of humanity came from, belongs, and is returning to. What does that mean in your heart? That's what that attainment is. The flaming sword? That is that we can't enter this state of acceptance of this great gift unless we enter the garden on the terms unless we have a similarity of form, that we want the same things for the same reason as the general law of reality. If we're different than that, it's impossible to enter. It's as a flaming sword. It's completely impossible. To the degree that we are, in any degree that we are similar to it, we begin to enter it. Mary?
Another question along those same lines. Aurelio Munoz, viewing on Facebook, is asking, why does Kabbalah talk about Moshe and Abraham as historical, but then it claims that the Torah is not from this physical world?
Kabbalah does not speak about any character in this is like you're mixing two things. You're talking about the characters in the Kabbalistic writing of the 5 books of Moses. It's all about states. Kabbalah does not talk about any of those states trying to convey that they are historic humans. It doesn't mean that they weren't, but that's not the level that Kabbalah talks about. All of these books are written in the logic and the language of bestowal of the quality of the upper force. It's opposite to your reason. Your reason is and mine, in our nature, is based on processing everything through a kind of a detached qualification, a judgment of everything. That is not how the upper force works. These books are, the Bible in particular, is written in the language of branches, out of which states and what a person needs to do to attain those states are expressed in the language that your reason can grasp in some way, as though they are people, as though there's time involved in all that. But it's actually a kind of a manual of spiritual physics. That's the only way that Kabbalah speaks about those things. Whether you can hear it that way and feel it that way has got to do with your level of attainment. Okay.
Okay, from Facebook, DeWitt G. Meleki is asking, what does it mean in Kabbalah, immortality and the resurrection of the dead?
There are stages that a person, that the heart, the soul, our soul, the collective, goes through in order to reach the fulfillment that the Creator has built and intended for us. The first part of it, well, the first big part of it, a major change, is the death of the ego. In other words, we don't use it. A seeker, a student, gets to a point where they fundamentally are not doing things because of the ego, and they have determined they have what's called a screen, in which one will only do what is possible to do in a way that's aligned with the intention of the Creator, which a person comes to know. So that's called the death of the ego. But what nature wants for us is something much greater than that. It is the proper use of our nature. Our nature can only receive. That's what we are. Everything that we see is only the will to receive. But the Creator wants to raise that will to receive to a way in which it is being used and feels itself the purpose for its existence, in order to fulfill everything else in the same way that the Creator does. So when it's a very, very high state, but when a person eventually reaches the point where they can again use the ego, at that point they will only be using that ego, and it will be active in them again for the fulfillment of others. Not just, I will stop doing what is not your nature. Now I will acknowledge that everything belongs to you, that just like you have arranged the forces of nature in order to develop everything, we now can look at our own nature that we think of as bad or useless or evil. We can use that in the same way you use it to develop and help you fulfill your goal of Creator, and also everybody else. That's the resurrection of the dead.
Okay, next up, Starlight, viewing on YouTube. Is the New World Order to which we are being steered a good thing?
Everything's good, but it's the reason for which something is happening that needs to be aligned. First of all, it shows us that there is such a tendency in nature itself, that it's not being hidden from us anymore, that it is inevitable because it is the law of reality. But the reason that it's happening is everything. It's not the form. I mean, we've been through this many, many times in history. Not so recently, well, I can think of two of them. Communism, a beautiful idea, but the reason for making certain that everybody has everything they need and for serving the collective was material. It wasn't in order to fulfill the law of nature. It was not to be in contact with the creator, with the upper force. It was only about our own comfortableness, well-being, and a lot of ideas that never reach that level. Well, this is similar to that. This is like, here we have this ideal, but it's global, you know, and it seems like, oh yeah, we'll just do these things and then we will be unified and working for the well-being of everything. But if we don't change the reason why we're even engaged in this, it will be a global, you know, destruction. But we know that, and we're being helped now. And even the nature of your question to entertain seeing it as good and that it is some kind of a natural tendency, that's because the correct side, the light, is also in it. But it's not, we're not just going to get it. We don't reach that state by receiving it. We reach that state by giving it. So what Kabbalah is designed for is, it's very, very simple. It's designed for this point in our development in which it's possible for all of us to understand our interconnection, to really feel and care for each other, and to learn how to do it. Love your friend as yourself is the law. And you can't live in that globalized reality unless the thing that you want out of it is to achieve that. To love my friend as myself. Not say that I am, not meme that I am, not pretend that I am, but to want that out of the situation. If that's what we want, everything is going to turn out fine. If we don't want that, this type of globalization is about the worst place you could go, but it won't turn out bad.
Hey, Tony, before we go to the next question, I'd like to read a few more locations that friends shared with us. We have viewers from Ohio, California, Serbia, Hanover, Germany, Ireland, Ghana, Nova Scotia, and London, England. So thank you for sending those to us. And the next question comes from Johnny Joseph, viewing on YouTube. How many years of suffering are required before correction? Or is it personal? Is it possible that I obtain correction, but others carry on suffering?
The perception that what's going on is suffering is what is going to change in our perception of reality. We're not going to, they observe similar things, but we are going to understand that it's an incomplete process that we are observing. And you can see many channels of development on different levels of nature. And you feel that as suffering if you don't have an overview of what's occurring there. There is no requirement for many years or centuries for suffering. We're right at the door of a different kind of perception that will let us see how nature operates and agree with it. And we will see and feel the pleasure and the goodness in it. All you have to do is change your relationship to other people through learning how to love your friend as yourself, through learning the proper use of the ego or the non-use of it in a particular way that is like the way that nature works from us. You do that and you'll stop seeing this suffering. You'll also stop feeling it. You'll understand what it is that you're feeling, that it's the pressure of development in the heart that we refuse to, it's telling us to take steps that we are refusing to take. So we project it outward and we see it as we see a kind of world of suffering. That can be inverted by working on ourselves. That's what higher attainment is. That's the opening of the heart. That's what the method of Kabbalah, which is simply explaining how nature actually works within us, that's what that will do. So no mandatory suffering.
Hey, Maria, thank you for your question. Maria Rosa Shalachi is asking, is it needed to have knowledge of physics in order to understand Kabbalah? I see that the majority of you who teach this method have this specialty.
We choose that language because you have that language. Because the society's religion is science. But Kabbalah does not speak that way. It's only that when people consider the topics of subtle or highly developed science, they come to the edge of their understanding and realize that there is a necessity for a different logic, not the logic of the mind, but an integration, a special integration. So it is a wide net that allows people who are somewhat close to it to begin to hear what nature is trying to tell them. No, it's not a specialty. It's like the language of branches. Like I said, that the Bible's written in a way that will reach the heart and logic of the egoistic mind so that they can begin to hear. That's all that is.
Hey, Tony, regarding the studies, Andre CMAC is wanting to know, should beginners stick to completing the courses on the KabU site, or are Rav Litman's daily lessons appropriate as well?
You can do them both. You need to complete all of the fundamentals, the whole process, because you can easily misunderstand what's going on. It could delay you to give up learning the fundamentals, and you'll just, it'll get sort of distorted, and you'll end up way off from the target. A small divergence at the beginning creates a great divergence. So if you're interested, you feel it, if it's inspiring, if you're hearing things there, that's great. That's where you need to go eventually anyway. But you need to go there with the vocabulary and with the experience that will help it unfold for you.
Okay, we have another question from Starlight. When things are out of our control that happen to us, like natural disasters, how did we participate to make that happen?
You required it. We're not the same. We're not all the same. We have a single source, but this source is expressed in a multiplicity. And the point of the multiplicity is so that we can consciously choose to be one, but not one in the same way that it was at our creation. One above all the differences, despite the differences, the ability to see the purpose of that multiplicity, to embrace it and love it, and to have the same attitude towards it as the force that created it. Ask me the question again.
Waiting for the question to repost here. Thank you. When
Natural
things are,
disasters, I just saw it on the thing.
out of our control.
Right.
Yep.
Everything's out of your control. You don't know what is going to happen to you in 1 second's time. We're not in control of anything. And as things develop, and they're all different, some have harder shells, some societies are closer to a correct relationship with each other, some not. Some people have a real hard shell around their heart. That's okay. It doesn't matter. But they all require different treatment. And the movement of these forces that either advance or break societies and do it in various ways, natural disaster, so on. It's all about our resistance and what's required to help us break that resistance. Just like a chick coming out of a hard egg. This is what's going on with us all the time. But one needs to understand the depth of the kind of love involved in creating such a complex system with so much potential complete fulfillment in it, that there will be satisfaction even after these processes. And really, because of the contrast between that kind of process of a natural disaster and the revelation of its real meaning in your heart. This doesn't happen all at once. How did we contribute to it? Because we are alive, we are being processed, and we're usually dragging our heels in one way or another. It's intended to wake us up, show us what the opposite of that might be, and to bring us through it.
Oh, connected to that, Tony, DeColeslaw wants to know, how can we understand free choice?
You can't understand it. It's not about your understanding. It's about your acceptance of that there is nothing but the Creator. And you are a part of that. But we are not a part of it while we disagree with its basic quality. So we have to learn what its quality is, and we learn how the heart can develop to agree with it. That's it.
Okay, next question is from Crystal James. Can you explain what the destruction of the first and second temples is about?
These are incomplete states, incomplete unity of people, or aligned with the purpose of creation. These were intermediate steps. The third temple, which has no walls and is not in a place and is not in time and space, but is the interconnection of all hearts, is the complete and the whole, the real temple. Everything else was part of laying a foundation for this complete state. And as this question has been coming up over and over again today, the necessity for the end of an old state and the entire sort of framework on which we perceive needs to break in order for us to be able to have a larger vessel for connection and to receive that light. Mary?
Ashley Kamara is asking, how does Jewish alchemy relate to Kabbalah?
I don't know anything about Jewish alchemy. I'm sorry, I can't answer that.
Okay, next up, coming from Instagram, Melody and Music is asking, should a Ger Tov study Kabbalah?
We are not a religion. Anybody can study Kabbalah, and everybody will eventually study the law of nature. And there are no restrictions. There never have been any restrictions on the teaching or the study of Kabbalah. So yes, you're welcome. Come on.
Viewing on Instagram, Mayor Maccabee is asking, what are the names of God?
They're attainments of within the heart of the qualities of love that one needs to attain in order to be similar to the law of nature.
Also from Instagram, Danielle is asking, how can my soul be absolutely free?
By connecting, by living for other people, by connecting with them, by aiming all of our actions for the fulfillment of the reason why creation exists, and you need to learn why creation exists, and by the acceptance of all of those things that are within you and presented to us by the Creator, that's where freedom and pleasure exists.
Another question
You
from...
can't do that. You cannot do that on your own. Your soul is not your soul. Your soul is everybody else. Your soul is what you think of as the people outside of you. That's your spirituality. There's nothing in us. There's no soul in us. It's only what is between us.
Next question, also from Instagram, HCM11 wants to know, what is the main difference between Kabbalah and Christianity?
Kabbalah is a methodology. Christianity is a religion. This is how. This is love your friend, love your neighbor as yourself. But this is how. This is the method of actually attaining the love of others, the identification with others as yourself.
Okay, Kefa, thank you for your question. Kefa Ari is asking, why does the world seem to be in so much suffering now? Why is the grip so tight on us?
Because we're being born into a new world, but it's going to require, and it's the same type of suffering that the fetus, that the newborn babe goes through as it moves down the uterus to enter a new world. It's squished, it's compressed, it's my mother told me I didn't want to come out, so there you go. It's that kind of intense pressure, but it's the force of nature leading us into something we can't possibly understand and are experiencing as pressure, as suffering, as intensity, and it's leading to the best possible outcome.
Okay, next up, needs to know. What is it? Why is it said that the Jews are still enslaved? And if so, what is required for their true freedom to occur?
The word Jew means unity, unified. We're all in the search for the ability to completely reunify that original unity that was shattered into, let's call it billions of parts, to have the desire to do that. Unless we are motivated by this unity, this yichud, Jewishness, which is a principle. It's not a religion, and it's anybody who seeks the Creator, direct connection with that force of the Creator. That's what Kabbalists, what Abraham called Jew, and it is not a religion. but we are not free unless we seek it and seek to explain it to others and give others this method of freedom and unity, and that it is intended for everybody. It was the original method. It should not be held or contained. It should be shared as broadly as possible, and we should be seeking unity between us more than anything else, because that's where peace and the goodness and the fulfillment and all those things that we seek for, that type of pleasure, are going to come. With that, I'll end my part of it, and I just want to let you know that there's an event coming up, and Mary's going to tell you about it. It's a physical retreat, a kind of a boot camp in which students or just people who are interested in learning the real method of practical Kabbalah, something that will take what you learn in principle in KabU, or if you're reading from sources, it will show you what the application of that is. And it's in an environment in which people are doing that for the right reason with each other. It's like a summer camp. It's a lot of fun. So it's nature and the inner human nature. It's really worthwhile doing. It really speeds up your perception and development. It's a heck of a lot of fun. I'm planning to be there, and a lot of the other KabU instructors will be there, and Mary will give you the details.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Just a couple of other locations that were shared with us, Brazil and Atlanta, Georgia, though. So thank you for sharing those with us. And the announcements, if you want to join KabU, if you're not already a KabU member, then we invite you to join. You can see the links in the chats. You'll gain access to several Kabbalah courses from beginners to advanced, the world's largest online Kabbalah community, the ability to ask instructors questions in the student forum, so you don't have to wait every 6 weeks for the Q&A. You can ask questions at any time. Access to the KabU exclusive weekly webinar, and also you'll get access to the next Kabbalah Revealed course with Tony starting on July 23rd. If you're not interested in joining, you can always support KabU by donating. We are all volunteers, so that helps us with all of our broadcasts and technology that supports these events. And a little bit more about the North America KabU Retreat 2023. It's time to recharge your spiritual batteries, or if you want to jumpstart your Kabbalah studies, this is a great way to do it. It will take place September 8 through 10. Everyone's invited and encouraged to attend. If you've attended a retreat, including the previous Europe retreat, then this retreat is definitely for you. It's very similar. It's a way to connect with the friends and put the practice into live experience. If you've never attended before, this retreat is also definitely for you. It will produce a first major spiritual change. So please see the links in the chat, and it'll be great to see all of you there. So thank you for joining today. Amazing questions. Always great to be with you, Tony. And thank you to our tech team as well. They're always amazing.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, you really held us up. Thank you, Mary. And thank you, friends. And